terrific lineup tonight. Two guests. We have Dr. Karama from Doctors Against Genocide and Seth Donnelly from Taxpayers Against Genocide, here to talk about a class action lawsuit that has been filed in Northern California and how it might apply elsewhere around the country. Before we get to that, though, I just want to remind everybody of the norms. Let's show respect at all times. Disrespect will not be tolerated. Let's try to stay on topic in the chat and engage, raise questions in the chat that we can ask our guests. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Medea Benjamin, who has been walking the halls of Congress for months now with a group of, up to 30 people visiting members' offices. So what's the latest on Capitol Hill?
Well, first, let me talk about the ceasefire agreement. I'm sure many of you have been following it closely, but just a quick overview is to say that there's 3 phases, which is unfortunate. Hamas wanted it to be 1 phase, but the 3 phases are 42 days each. The first phase, there are supposed to be 33 hostages released, and on the Israeli side, they're supposed to release up to 1,900 prisoners. We could call them hostages as well. And that number will fluctuate depending on who are the hostages that are released. They have a crazy formula to determine how many Palestinians get released for each hostage. You probably saw the 3 women that were released, and tremendous joy in Israel as a result of that. When the hostages or the detainees from Palestine were released, Israel warned the families and the communities not to have any public display of joy, and said that they could be rearrested or the families arrested if they did. Of course, the Palestinian communities, for the most part, disregarded that, but it is an indication of how mean the Israelis are and how fragile this whole thing is. Also, as part of the agreement, there's supposed to be at least 900 trucks, at least 600 trucks every day. But today there were almost 900 trucks, which is great. A lot of those trucks are fuel trucks, much needed fuel going in. And there are also, as part of it, is that the military is supposed to pull back from the populated areas, and people are supposed to be able to return to their homes. But of course, so many of their homes have been destroyed. And you might see on social media rather than on US mainstream news the just heartbreaking accounts of people going back to what are supposed to be their neighborhoods and finding nothing there. The phase 2 is a big question mark, because that's when the remaining Israeli soldiers are supposed to pull out of Gaza completely, and all of the hostages are supposed to have been released. And there is a lot of questions about whether Israel will actually get to the second phase, which is to be negotiated during the first 42 days of the first phase. And Netanyahu has said to some of his right-wing extremists that, if the Palestinians and Hamas in particular don't abide by the agreement, they will go back to fighting. And of course, it's very easy to find an excuse for that. And then the third phase is supposed to be all of the bodies of the people who perished to return back to Israel, and the beginning of the reconstruction and the opening up of the crossings. So that in general is the 3 phases, but it's all extremely delicate. The hearings that we went to recently were the Marco Rubio hearing for Secretary of State, and then the Pete Hegseth hearing for the Secretary of Defense, and then today Elise Stefanik, who Trump has picked for the UN ambassador. The Hegseth hearing was more controversial because the Democrats are saying that he is totally unqualified for the position for a variety of reasons. And today it went through committee and they voted along party lines. So the Democrats voted against Hegseth. It will go to the floor for a vote on Thursday. Um, uh, the vote on Marco Rubio was, to the surprise of many of us, unanimous, which means even someone like Bernie Sanders voted for Marco Rubio, despite the fact that Rubio is a war hawk, an interventionist, is terrible on the Israel issue, doesn't want to go back into the nuclear deal with Iran, and on and on. Unfortunately, all the Democrats said, well, he's qualified because he was one of us, a senator. And then today at the Stefanik hearing, it was painful to sit through because of the questions by both the Republicans and the Democrats, and of course, many of her answers. And I think the one that has been going viral on social media is when she was asked by Senator Van Hollen if she thought that the Palestinians had the right to self-determination, which she would not say, yes, they do. She just kept going around and around and not answering the question. And then he asked whether she agreed with the right-wing Israeli politicians, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, that Israel had a biblical right to the West Bank, and she said yes. So those are some of the highlights, or I should say the lowlights from the hearings.
Thank you, Medea. We really appreciate your presence on Capitol Hill and the reports that you deliver on this program. We're going to turn to Hania right now for a look at Trump's executive orders. Hania.
Thank you, Marcy and Medea. It's always an honor and a great pleasure to be in community with you both and our attendees and our guest speakers. Trump had a very busy Monday yesterday. Right after his inauguration, he signed a wide range of executive orders, issuing threats and fulfilling campaign promises. So to kind of give you a sense of what's happening, he pardoned 1,500 January 6th rioters, gave TikTok another 75 days before being banned, and withdrew the U.S. from the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Agreement again. He also reinstated Cuba's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism just days after Biden had reversed it. He declared an emergency at the US-Mexico border, allowing armed forces and the National Guard to be deployed. Immigration policies from his first term are actually making a comeback. He overturned Biden's limits on deportation priorities, now making every undocumented individual a priority for removal. And he's even signed an order aimed at ending birthright citizenship, though legal challenges are expected since it is enriched in the Constitution. In terms of international executive orders, he has issued sanctions against the International Criminal Court, including travel restrictions and economic measures, aligning with calls from Israel to counter ICC warrants against its leaders. And on the domestic front, Trump has rolled back protection for transgender people and terminated federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. He also formally empowered a so-called Department of Government Efficiency led by Elon Musk to kind of streamline government operations. However, Vivek Ramaswamy has already quit the initiative, leaving Musk in full control. So it's about to be a very interesting next 4 years for us, Marcy.
Thank you for that report, Hania. Medea, I know you've spent a lot of time in Cuba. Any thoughts about the significance or the adverse impact of what he did yesterday, Trump?
Well, first, let's recognize that Biden was so disgusting in not taking Cuba off that list on day one in an executive order and waited till the very end of his 4-year term to do that, and made it so easy for Trump to just reverse it. So it is just so sad, you know, the Cubans, as the right-wing Cuban American Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar said, they will have a short time to party, which was about a week. And it means that the banks don't want to deal with Cuba. It means that the economic situation for the Cuban people will continue to be really dire. It means that many Cubans will continue to want to flee the country for better well-being. And then Trump has to deal with the immigration issue. So it's a lose-lose for all of us.
Thank you. And then on the ICC, my understanding is that yesterday, one of his executive orders was to reverse Biden's reversal of his previous executive order sanctioning the ICC and employees for the ICC. And so, it is to be determined what he's really going to do on that, because I've even read that were he to impose sanctions on the ICC, he could become a wanted criminal if he were to travel to specific countries, because he would be accused of impeding justice. And even though the United States is not a party to the International Criminal Court, lots of places are, and so it might limit his travel.
Well, I very much doubt that, Marcy, although we would like that to happen. And unfortunately, it's going to come up for a vote in the Senate very, very soon. And unfortunately, there are way too many senators who will vote to sanction the ICC, and in the House, they will certainly vote to sanction the ICC. It's just terrible.
On that note, we're going to go to our first guest, and Medea is going to interview the organizer, or one of the key organizers of Doctors Against Genocide. Medea.
Yes, well, it's my great pleasure, because I love Doctors Against Genocide, and particularly our guest tonight, who is one of the co-founder of Doctors Against Genocide, Dr. Karama Kumile. And I'll call you, I hope you don't mind, Dr. Karama, affectionately, which is what many of your colleagues call you. She is just a marvel. She is a pediatric neurologist at Boston's Children's Hospital and a faculty member at Harvard Medical School. Her leadership in DAG comes from her personal experience as a Palestinian, having witnessed firsthand the systemic anti-Palestinian racism that allowed the genocide in Palestine to happen. She has helped turn Doctors Against Genocide from a small group, what were there, about 10 of you to start with? I don't know if it was even that, into a global network now that has thousands of doctors and nurses and other healthcare workers. They do so many things. We have been just had the honor of working with them in some of the lobby days they've been doing in Congress, which have been marvelous. You know, doctors who walk in with the white coats, the ears perk up in the offices. So it's great to have them in Congress. They also have been doing wonderful campaigns and have branched out, not just talking about Palestine, Gaza, but also talking about the genocide in Sudan, the health issues affecting the Rohingya who had to flee from Burma. And what I really do recommend is that you go to their website, check them out, because every Sunday they have a marvelous, marvelous webinar that oftentimes lasts for hours, and people are glued to it because you get to hear directly from doctors in Gaza. You get to hear directly from people from the US who just returned from Gaza. You just get to hear incredible firsthand experiences. So thank you so much for your work, Dr. Karama, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you so much, Medea. Thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you for having me. Medea, I owe you. You know that we came to the Hill and we ran into you the first time we were ever there. Dr. Shbour, I think he's here in the audience. He's the co-founder of Doctors Against Genocide. He and I are classmates. We went to medical school together. And we ran into Medea with some of our fellow medical professionals. And she, as always, she was gracious enough to take us around, show us how to do it. And we have learned so much from you. So we are always grateful to you. And we have such high regard for CODEPINK. That has been exposing so much about the system that controls so much of our lives here in this country and abroad. Although I am a medical doctor and I work at Boston Children's Hospital, and I'm a faculty at Harvard Medical School, I am told that I should not should express that the views that I express are my own views and not the views of my institution. Although I feel that I am doing them a favor by actually speaking up against genocide, and they should be very happy that I'm doing this work for them. So for my institution, I say pay attention to what we're doing, and you are falling short. And I look forward to hearing from Seth. I'm very excited about what you are doing in terms of the lawsuit. So I can't wait to hear you. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Doctors Against Genocide and how it originated and what we are up to. Recently, we have started identifying that genocide is almost like a pathology that affects a community. The perpetrators become so good at dehumanizing the victims, and it becomes very difficult to even reason with them. There's complete denial of the human rights of the victimized community. There is complete dehumanization, segregation, persecution, and we have experienced that firsthand. And we became extremely acutely aware to signs of genocide, and we felt that this is we have been living in a status of genocide as Palestinians that started from the minute there was a declaration of a people without a land for a land without a people. So there was complete erasure of the Palestinians the minute there was plans for Israel to be erected in our homeland. And since then, we have experienced extreme discrimination and extreme denial of our human rights. And you might think, why do doctors care? Or why do medical professionals care? I think just taking a quick look at what's happening in Gaza makes you realize that this is a very much a medical problem. Gaza has been, it has the most killed healthcare professionals in modern history. It has the most maimed children and the most killed children in the past major conflicts. We have seen how the weaponizing of destruction of healthcare is being used to achieve complete annihilation of a community. Our people in Gaza have always looked at their hospitals and their doctors as their guardians and their saviors. And we have seen our colleagues incarcerated, humiliated, tortured, kidnapped, and even raped in detention before they were killed. This has been an extremely difficult thing for us to see. There has always been the sense that at least the hospitals and at least the doctors and the nurses are protected, at least the EMTs and the ambulance cars are protected, but we have seen every single level of healthcare being decimated by Israel in Gaza. We have seen a degree of it that is very great in the West Bank, but what happened in Gaza has become a new standard, a new level of atrocity that we have not witnessed before. Add to that we have seen patients being burnt, hooked to IVs. We have seen children operated on without anesthesia. We have seen mothers give birth without any help and not having food to even be able to breastfeed their children. We have seen children die from being frozen in the cold. We have seen the break of polio infections in Gaza, which has been almost completely eradicated. So if anyone says this is not your business because you are just doctors, I would really challenge them to look at what happened in Gaza and tell us that this is not your business, because it is very, very much our business. And shame on the medical community that has stayed silent in face of this atrocity. I am embarrassed when I see my colleagues trying to say to say it in different ways or ignore it. even today, there was a lecture that was canceled by Harvard Medical School, and the lecture was given by a medical doctor and epidemiologist who wanted to speak about evacuated children who came from Gaza to Boston. The lecture was canceled this morning at 8:36 a.m. just before, people signed up to go, and then, people had to learn that this was canceled. What kind of a medical student cancels a lecture about children who are evacuated from a place like Gaza? It is shameful. So we have found a gap in the medical community, and it has been filled. I think that explains why we are growing so fast, and that explains why we have so many members come to Doctors Against Genocide, and we have so many people join our webinars. And we have been very deliberate in being very focused on our mission, which is against genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity. We pride ourselves on centering the community that is at risk and having the people from the community that is at risk lead the way on advocacy. So, if we are interacting with people from Rohingya, we want them to lead that effort, and we will take a step back. It makes a big difference for us that we actually are Palestinians, because we understand it much better than somebody who never lived in that environment. So, and I think there has always to be a strong effort to center the people who are affected, because they should be given agency and they should be able to advocate for themselves on their own, and no one should be able to speak up for them. So that is another thing that I really urge people to do, and I urge us to be very aware of that, so we do not make the mistake of taking the voice of someone who needs a platform. I wanted to talk about a few of our campaigns, and I hope I will not take too much time, but part of our work is raising awareness. So we started a campaign called Not Another Child, Not Another Hospital. It is a campaign that is directed towards our institutions, our hospitals, our societies. And it is an invitation, an open invitation for all these medical professionals to join us in the call to protect hospitals, to protect children, to ask for ending violence, ask for end ceasefire, and most importantly, ask for accountability. Because without accountability, we will see an endless, relentless genocide, like what is happening right now. There was a ceasefire. Medea explained the ceasefire so well, and it is not really a ceasefire. We are still seeing children being sniped. We are still seeing people killed. So respect our intelligence. Without a real reform of what is happening, and without a focus on 100% focus on human rights, we cannot assume that this is over in any sense or any form. And it's not over. We have a new administration that is extremely, I don't know how to explain it, extremely not focused on human rights, but focused on some form of supremacy that is not compatible with any peace vision for our region or for Palestine. And that makes our work as Doctors Against Genocide, as CODEPINK, as healthcare workers for Palestine, which is an organization that is very young and very agile, and I'm a member in Boston, makes our work so much more important, because it seems to me that all the big institutions have been told to not say anything or not talk about anything. So it is, the responsibility on us is huge. And for that, we need to be strong, we need to be united, and we need to be very well educated, and we need to know all the details of what is happening behind closed doors, because things happen all of a sudden and we're surprised. like the adoption of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism by Harvard University that just happened this today. That is a very clear attempt to make it so hard to advocate for Palestinian rights. And for that, we have to be able to speak up. We have to be able to be fully equipped to fight back. We're not going to give up. This is ridiculous. You should be able to criticize a country, and you should be able to criticize Zionism as a form of supremacy. Removing our freedom of speech and our academic freedom to achieve a genocide is really egregious. Not Another Child, Not Another Hospital is one of our campaign that is ongoing, and it's an open invitation for our institutions. However, if they do not respond, we will have a different tactic with them. And the other one is the campaign that is called Sick from Genocide, because we have seen so many people being having symptoms of being sick, like not having enough sleep, not being able to actually enjoy life, having anxiety, having even panic attacks, lack of motivation. And this is a very important thing. It affects us, and it affects us because we are exposed to genocide that we're not able to stop. But it does not take away from the fact that the people in Palestine, the people in Gaza, are the ones who are suffering. We will not center our pain, and we will make it about us. Sick from Genocide is a call to action. If you are sick from genocide, the only way you can actually get better is to organize to stop the genocide. So I invite anyone to join hands with us. I think we are a very welcoming community. We like people to join us, learn what we do things with us. We're happy to support initiatives, and we're happy to learn from people. And we want to make the world a safer, more just, and devoid of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. And the only way to do that is to be able to speak up and to fight for human rights and to fight for health as a human right. And I will end with that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Karama. It is it just takes my breath away to listen to you. You know, you're so knowledgeable and such a great communicator. So I'm thinking that if I were on Capitol Hill and I was a staff member or a congressperson, I would be very interested in hearing what you have to say. And so I'm wondering what the response has been to what you have to say on Capitol Hill. Who have you met with, or maybe if you could share a few stories of who you met with and their response.
Yes, thank you. So we have a team that goes to the Hill on weekly basis, which is great. And we also have days where we try to get as many people as possible to go. So I feel that it helps to be wearing white coats and present as medical professionals. It didn't help that much last time because they almost arrested some members of our group because they were taking pictures. But I want to believe that this was an isolated event and it was just one angry security person who just did not know better. But I think it's important for us to go around. We have been trying to go to our medical colleagues in the Congress and the Senate. Most of them are Republicans. And we try to go and meet with the health policy staffer or the foreign policy staffer. We have been more successful in getting some appointments with representatives themselves. I feel it's a new thing. We have to keep doing it to actually be able to understand the effect from our visits. I do not want to give up and say it's not working. I think that we should keep doing it, and we should not lose confidence in the strength of our voices and our collective duties as medical professionals. So I encourage our members to always come and always try to make appointments and go together, go with our white coats, go with our medical knowledge, and make it clear to the politicians that they work for us and we do not work for them. We take care of patients, we take care of humans, we take care of health, and their job is to help us.
Absolutely. And with that, a question from Medea, then a question from Hania.
Well, I wanted to know if the ceasefire will allow more medical teams to go in, and are groups planning that? Is the Rafah border going to be more open to these teams now?
It's still, this is all new, so we don't know what's happening. Supposedly there will be more aid and there will be more medical aid. We are hoping to go as soon as we're able to. Some of us, including myself, are Palestinians, and imagine that COGAT made this thing that, if you have a Palestinian family member or you're originally Palestinian, you cannot go and serve in Gaza. It's a very inexplicable. So what we are doing actually is we're having a white tent great action in Geneva that starts on the 24th of January and lasts till the 30th of January, where medical professionals and medical groups from all over the world will join hands and be in a tent. We will go to the WHO, to the United Nations, to the ICRC, and we have demands to allow unlimited humanitarian aid and unlimited humanitarian mission and medical missions. And that's our goal. Our goal is to be able to go there and help rebuild the health system. So we're not waiting for them to allow us. We're actually going, and we're hoping to open a health medical corridor that is unrestricted. And everyone is determined to get this done, whether it's by staying there and just, demanding it. We'll figure it out. We're just determined to make it happen, and we will not give up until we're able to go help our colleagues there. We also want, we have a campaign to release our detained colleagues. There are over 450 medical doctors and medical professionals who are incarcerated by Israel. And Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya is somebody that we got to know extremely well, and we're campaigning for his release. So that is something that we're working on as well. So to answer your questions, we do not know, but that does not mean that we do not want to, and that we will not work to make this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your courage and your commitment and determination is inspiring. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. Hania, a question.
Sure, Dr. Karama, I just want to send you all of my love. As a mom, I just cannot imagine what these Palestinian women go through, having to bury their children so young. So you are an inspiration to all of us, and they are symbols of resistance. And with that said, why hasn't the American Medical Association spoken out against this genocide? Has there been an attempt by Doctors Against Genocide to meet with them? Are there any organized campaigns within AMA that you're aware of that we can learn to join?
Thank you, Hania. And thank you for your kind words. Yes, so many children have been born and have died already within the last 15 months. So they did not even have the chance to live. So our medical institutions, our medical associations, our medical societies have been the greatest disappointment through this genocide. We have seen the hypocrisy, we have seen the double standard, we have seen a lot of action that happened when Ukraine happened, even with Sudan. But when it comes to Palestine, there is like a strong Palestinian exceptionalism and a strong anti-Palestinian racism that is allowing this to happen. So there is a degree of dehumanization that is incredible. We are very proud Palestinians. We We do not accept that in any way or form. Our humanity is above and beyond any of these people who want to dehumanize us. But the reality is that there is a severe dehumanization problem. Even the pain of Palestinian is not taken seriously. The numbers are questioned. Oh, this is the Ministry of Health numbers, so they must be not right. While we know that this is a huge underestimate.
Yeah.
There is also the silence and the whataboutism and the two-sidedness, as if, you know, we need to center the oppressor and and not the oppressed. So there is a lot of work that has been done to make this genocide possible. And that included, as I said, the dehumanization, the racism, the segregation, the disregard for the Palestinian lives, and the disregard for the Palestinian narrative, which has been pursued by a lot of the Zionist groups for so long. Our job is to dismantle this, and our job is to dismantle what Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya called the genocide enabling apparatus, which does not only operate in Palestine by killing the doctors and destroying the hospitals, it also operates within our institutions by making it not possible for us to advocate for our colleagues and the patients in Gaza.
Dr. Karama, thank you so much for joining us. At this point, I'm going to ask everybody to unmute, or Grace Siegelman, who's helping us behind the scenes, always helping us with the technical aspects of this program, to unmute everybody so we can thank you profusely for joining us tonight.
Shukran.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shukran.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank
you.
you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. And before we go on to our next guest, our next featured guest, I just want to remind everybody to please stay with us until the end of the program, because we will have a take action portion where we will be calling Capitol Hill about all of this and the imperative to stop sending weapons to Israel and to allow journalists in to document and tell the world about the atrocities that our government is responsible for, how our government spent our taxpayer dollars. Let's now go to Hania to introduce our second guest.
Thank you so much, Marcy. It is my great honor to introduce the activists behind Taxpayers Against Genocide, a movement that has gained incredible momentum with over 600 plus people nationally registered for their national organizing call, which will be held on January 25th. These participants are eager to learn how they can take action and sue their members of Congress. Leading the charge is Seth Donnelly, the driving force behind this initiative. Seth is the leading plaintiff in a class action lawsuit against Northern California Congress members who voted to use taxpayer funds to arm Israel's genocide in Gaza. The case filed by Taxpayers Against Genocide accuses U.S. Reps Jared Huffman and Mike Thompson of violating multiple domestic laws, including the Leahy Law, that bar aid for military units committing gross human rights violations. Seth taught public high school for a year and is one of the founding members of Taxpayers Against Genocide. I also want to take this moment and recognize our colleague, Norman Solomon, of Roots Action, who's also a part of this lawsuit. With that said, I will give you the virtual floor, Seth. Take it away, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Dr. Karama, major respect, 100% solidarity with your efforts. And it was thank you for sharing today. And of course, thanks to CODEPINK for the steadfast work that's just been going on, and Medea and CODEPINK for so many years. You know, one of our plaintiffs is actually with Doctors Against Genocide out of one of the class reps out of Richmond. I'm sorry, Richmond. And so that we're working actively with them. And so I want to give a brief overview of how this came to be, and then we'll take questions, of course. But like folks all across the country, there's all of these grassroots organizations that are operating in solidarity with the Palestinian people, and that have been trying over the last 15 months to stop the genocide in Gaza. And you know, in our context in Northern California, I'm in Sonoma County. We went through a series of attempts to get ceasefire resolutions from the local city councils. We were at the large Bay Area demonstrations that put thousands on the streets. As you mentioned, I'm a high school teacher, or, you know, I taught high school for almost 25 years, and my students were petitioning. They were very concerned as they saw and learned what was happening, and they were writing letters to their representatives in Congress. And, you know, in most cases, we didn't even get a ceasefire resolution from the city councils, right? With all the street demonstrations, and we'll always do street demonstrations. I mean, that's crucial. But with all the demonstrations, we just kept witnessing the genocide deepen, and we kept witnessing on April 20th, last April 20th, Congress, starting with the House, and then 3 days later in the Senate, re-up 26.38 billion more of our tax dollars in military aid to Israel. And so last summer, a bunch of us in the Northern California region said we're going to shift to organizing a protest directly against one of our reps, Mike Thompson, and that brought a bunch of us from different counties together. And we went to his annual summer fundraiser outside of a winery and protested. And that's when we said we're going to actually take legal action against him for illegally using our tax dollars. And in the course of that sort of cross-county organizing, we connected with folks in neighboring communities whose representative, Jared Huffman, also had the exact same decision on April 20th. They both voted to send the $26+ billion in military aid. So that led towards organizing across 10 different counties in Northern California. We formed a class, and each county has to have class reps, like key activists or people from all walks of life. We have over 20 class reps from these 10 counties, and some of them are key Palestinian leaders in Northern California. Some of them we have Jewish activists involved, of course, and we have people of all walks of life, you know, healthcare workers, teachers like myself, farmers, etc. And then on December 19th, we filed the class action against these two reps in the Federal District Court of Northern California in San Francisco. And we had found a movement lawyer in the National Lawyers Guild. We spent months with volunteer lawyers and paralegals working on the case. And when we filed the case on December 19th, it then we had a press conference and it went public. And that's where it went kind of viral, because then we started getting hundreds of people across the country saying they want to do the same thing. People across California saying they wanted to do the same thing. Major organizations in the Bay Area, like the Arab Resource Organizing Center, CODEPINK, etc. We're all like wanting, you know, working together, and new groups are coming in. So we decided to expand the lawsuit from the original 10 counties. We could amend it pretty easily, and we filed last Friday on January 17th an expanded version of the lawsuit, where we're now taking every county in the region of this federal district court. So that's 18 counties total, all the way down from Santa Cruz and Monterey up to the Oregon border through Humboldt. We have over nearly 1,500 class members now, and it's growing by the day, almost by the hundreds. And we now have 47 class representatives engaged in a lawsuit. And we've expanded the defendants to include Nancy Pelosi, the other reps who voted for the military aid, and both our senators. So some people have said, well, how can you sue your members of Congress? Don't they have immunity? Our position, and we think we actually have a correct legal argument. I mean, we're taking this very seriously. This is not a stunt. I mean, it is obviously leading to mass mobilization in a level that's very exciting, but we are fighting to win. Our eyes are wide open. We know what the court system is. We know how the court system dealt with the previous lawsuit by the Center for Constitutional Rights and the Palestinian families that sued Biden over genocide. And so I can't say we expect to win, but we're fighting to win because we think we have a correct legal argument. There's a Supreme Court case from 1968 called Flass versus Cohen, in which the Supreme Court affirmed that taxpayers have a right to sue. They have a standing to sue if their tax dollars are used in an unconstitutional manner. In that case, the tax dollars were being used by local officials for like private religious schooling purposes. And they won. The taxpayers won. They had standing, and it breached the Establishment Clause. Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution says that any treaty that's been ratified is the supreme law of the land. As I'm sure folks on the call know, or many of you know, that in 1988, the U.S. government finally ratified the Genocide Convention 40 years after the fact. And in doing so, that became the supreme law of the land. Article 3 of the Genocide Convention prohibits complicity in genocide. So our position is it was unconstitutional for our representatives, and frankly, anybody in this call from different parts of the country, it's unconstitutional for your reps to have done the same thing, to take our tax dollars and fund a genocide. By April 20th, when they did that vote, the evidence of genocide was overwhelming. The month before, Francesca Albanese, had issued the UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied territories, had issued her stark report, Anatomy of a Genocide. Medical professionals, of course, were speaking out left and right. The ICJ had made its ruling back in January that there was a plausible case of genocide, such that there was pending litigation. And the two largest human rights organizations in the world, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, had already issued reports in February saying that Israel was defying the ICJ provisions. We went to our reps. We said, don't do this. My students met with Representative Mike Thompson to his face and said, don't do this. And what they did, despite this massive opposition, some of the people in our movement literally did peaceful vigils every week for the last 15 months, and they still send our tax dollars to exterminate the people of Gaza, the Palestinian people. So our position is, if they can't build a religious school with our tax dollars, they certainly can't fund genocide in violation of a treaty they've ratified. And then, last but not least, there's a series of federal laws that they've been violating too, like the Leahy Amendment and other ones. So it's a serious case. And this Saturday, we're holding a webinar at 10 a.m. California time, so that'd be 1 p.m. East Coast time, for people, anybody in the country that wants to learn more. And we want to support these kind of lawsuits to proliferate, and organized by the district. So the federal court districts, again, ours is the 18 counties, from the Santa Cruz all the way up to Oregon, including San Francisco and Oakland. Find your court district, organize within it, create a class, and our attorney's more than willing to, the argument is public. The complaint is now public record, and he's given the blessing to other progressive attorneys to work with that. So I'll stop there, for any questions.
Sure. Well, I'll start off with a question. So, Seth, what's it going to take to have people hear these arguments? How far along do you think this case might progress? How far along did the previous case progress that was brought by the Center for Constitutional Rights?
Sure. So this in the chat, by the way, is the link for people to register for the webinar. And it looked like there's also the link tree got posted too, so that's good. But yeah, so in that case, right, they filed it in in November 2023. And then it was end of January 2024, where it was the same federal court, by the way, that we're dealing with. And that the judge had this very powerful remark where he said that this is one of the hardest cases, if not the hardest case he had to deal with, and that the evidence of genocide was compelling. But then they went on to say that, well, the federal court doesn't make foreign policy. They could do the same with us. And so I don't, I'm a lay person, and, attorneys have different perspectives. But the progressive attorneys that are working with us, again, we're fighting to win. And as much as we were inspired, and we remain inspired by that previous case, there's a different angle here, which is we're talking about the domestic appropriation of our tax dollars. And when the children sued over climate change, for example, first they were written off, like, you can't do that. And they said they had an implied right under the 9th Amendment to a sustainable environment. We're also saying that we have, under the 9th Amendment implied rights, we have a constitutional right to have our tax dollars spent within the parameters of what's called the general welfare under Article 1 of the Constitution. and within the parameters of not violating any treaties that are the supreme law of the land. So that focus on appropriation, that focus on our taxes, we've been forced into complicity in this genocide. That's another part of our argument, is moral injury for everybody, and especially the Palestinian plaintiffs in our community, who've had to see their tax dollars be used to destroy their own people, their own families. So that's a part of our argument. And if in the outside chance, it is a way uphill battle, but if we prevailed and we got damages, every penny is going to the people of Palestine.
Thank you. Medea, Hania, a question, and then we'll go to our action.
Yeah, I can ask one. Seth, for people across the country who are interested in doing something like this, who are nervous about not being able to afford an attorney, what were some of the very first steps that you all took to ensure that there's representation? And obviously fundraising plays a huge role in this, but what's your advice?
Well, the National Lawyers Guild attorneys have been great, and we've also been, I mean, there's definitely, I'm sure in every district people are at, there's progressive lawyers. So we got lucky. I mean, it's not pro bono because they have to, but it's low bono. Like, we're getting a really good rate. And then as we've grown and we have hundreds and hundreds of people, we just set up a GoFundMe, and it's really taking off, and so, I mean, but none of it, we're all, everybody involved, it's all unpaid labor. I mean, all of us, and so we're just scrambling, but we're making it so far, and we again, we're hoping to take this as far as we can, there's if you folks come to the webinar, I think in the audience, I saw it in the chat, one of the leading plaintiffs, Maria Barakat, is a key activist a Palestinian Lebanese activist in Sonoma County, and she can speak more then to also all the organizing that's happening at a grassroots level that led to this kind of thing. So what we've done is we've really created Taxpayers Against Genocide on the basis of all the organizing that already exists, and we're leveraging that organizing towards this campaign.
Thank you so much, Seth. We are going to go to our action now because, it's almost the top of the hour, but we really commend you for your relentless pursuit of justice for us, for the Palestinians. And let's open up the microphone so everybody can please thank Seth for joining us
Thank you,
tonight.
Seth.